Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to continue on, again trying to break free. I'm labeling some of these episodes as my just the lecture series I've been updated in a while. From rhythm to algorithm is all of the technical science, and the language and litigation series on my channel is all of, again, focusing on language, linguistics, history, current events, stuff like that. So just keep going with my content. Today we are going to talk about decision making, specifically logic. Who out there has ever made a decision for themselves? Everybody, of course you have. So today we're really just going to be discussing, in these videos, again, because I do research in basically every fundamental science and a lot of other areas, and I begin research that's already on people's desks. I jump around in different sections a lot. Trying to keep it as continuous and coherent as possible, but really walking you through more of the logical derivation that I do, and just as opposed to the previous episodes, which have been more so close to lectures, but really just live derivation, me deriving in front of my camera, as opposed to, I've emailed professors in academic institutions for years and years and years. Anybody that's a genuine player in the academic or law enforcement in any country knows about my work and what I've done. And again, my research includes, at this point it's a portfolio, so if you want to go look at the other stuff I've done, you can go look at it. But it's several lecture series, it's almost 1,000 videos. It's a technical PhD thesis written about 40 pages long. And a $500,000 cash notarized offer to discuss any of this plethora of work I've done with anybody of any substantial following or public platform. But today we're going to be discussing all of a model for logic and just how we make decisions and different aspects. I have a little model. Again, this is an episode where I would use video elements, editing elements, but I just, again, haven't edited. I'm recording pretty late tonight, so I'm trying to switch up my brain flow, but it's like 11:30 at night today when I'm recording. But I'll put this up there when we get to it, but just, I wouldn't be using visuals at this point in the video. But the structure of logic. So what do we talk about logic? What are we doing? We're saying, what is reasonable? What reason do we use to justify a decision or indecision? And so, right, we all live in reality. But I just want to make a differentiation between subjective reality, what one individual perceives, versus objective reality. Subjective with an S and objective with an O. Subjective meaning there includes bias, and objective reality, which really is just reality, is just facts as facts come without any speciality, any personal input, without any interpretation. It is what it is, something's there, that's it. And so, what is good isn't always normal by any demonstrable empirical observation. Normal is what everybody around you is doing. And we all have cell phones, right? You can look online, you can get on Twitter, or X, Instagram, Facebook, any social media, and whether you're aware of it or not, assess your behavior against the behavior of every other part of the species in real time on a supercomputer in your hand. Everybody is learning how everybody else behaves behind closed doors right on their cell phone. So if everybody's throwing babies into a campfire and burning them to death and chanting around the campfire, ooga, 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 like our ancestors did, that's normal. But that doesn't mean in any objective sense that is good. And so just a distinction between subjective reality and objective reality. Subjective reality is what a single individual thinks regardless of objective truth, and objective reality is simply what is true. So we're going to be discussing how do we come at conclusions that are true in this video. So I just have under objective reality what is true, and then true and truth. But this is also, you can tie this logic directly into the fundamental problem of the measurement problem of quantum mechanics, which we've already solved, again, going on 8.5 years now, who knows. But, all right, they say, when does the wave function collapse? Again, we've covered functions. We're not going to do a bunch of physics in this episode. We'll do physics in the next one. And this one I'm trying to keep this solely on logic, trying to keep these videos about 20 minutes long, but who cares? If you're watching these videos, you're actually, sitting down and truly taking it in and not just scrolling through YouTube or some other website. But in quantum mechanics, they say, when does the wave function collapse? When does a measurement make an observation or a sample of mass behave like a particle or a wave through the double slit experiment? But the logic is really already encapsulated in another common phrase or conundrum or riddle that everybody's already heard outside of physics. If a tree falls in the woods, does somebody hear it? Is the exact same logical conundrum as what people are asking of when does a quantum wave function collapse? What is the role of observation in a physical system's behavior? Again, we're not going to go into physics. I'm going to extend this video into a physics. The next video will be a physics video. So try and just, again, give you a diagram of how logic really functions throughout an individual in a species and how that affects individual behavior and species behavior. So, but the superposition and the quantum mechanics question of when does the wave function collapse is logically identical to if a tree collapses in the woods, and there's nobody around to hear it, does it make a noise? And so that is one-to-one logic. But what really establishes truth is simple facts, existence, right? It doesn't matter if I want there to be a notebook in my hand or if I think there's a notebook in my hand. By any reasonable standard, there's a notebook in my hand. And so reality, facts don't care about your feelings, bro. But now I want to introduce, again, I'll put it up on the screen. There'll either be a cut scene right here to show you my diagram, or if you can see it on the screen, I just want to show you the approach that I'm doing. But it's pretty simple. Again, we just start with a simple fact, right? There's a pen over there on a dinette set. It's a simple empirical fact. Whether you call it a pen or you call it a pen in some other language, the simple fact is, the empirical fact is there's an object there and you're going to call it something. And so then we can ask the question, well, how did the pen get there? One person says Santa Claus brought it, and we have, from our empirical fact, that's the pen existing. And our reason, Santa Claus brought it. And so our conclusion is our pen is on the dinette set because Santa Claus brought it. Starting from the same facts, person number 2 comes along and says, reason 2, well, I'm going to draw the conclusion that my brother was drawing a picture and forgot to take the pen away. And so conclusion 2 is brother left the pen away, and reason 1 is Santa Claus exists and brought him the pen. And so then, this is, obviously a silly example, but this could be applied to literally any decision. And this is what you're doing in the background of making a logical decision at any point in time. And so conclusion 1 and conclusion 2, they're different, but they're both derivative of the fact. You're deducing why the pen is there because you're motivated to answer the question as to why the pen is there because you're curious about it. But given 2 different reasons, you assess what is most likely, then whatever is actually true is simply established by what reality presents. And so, but they're derivative. Again, up at the top here, again, in the picture that I have in mind, it's not just a triangle, but a three-dimensional pyramid. Right? This is just the very top. And even more so now, think of, you have the triangle, and the solid dots represent actual facts validated by empirical data, and conclusions are represented by open circles, just saying this is a potential conclusion as to why this fact exists. And so generality to specificity, we go from describing systems more general to more specific over time, whether that's universal, whether that's local. Again, if you're a new soccer player, you go play soccer the first day, you don't know how to run around, put your shin guards on, kick a ball. The next day you get a little better, the next week you get a little better, the next month you get better, 10 years go by, you're a lot better than when you started. And so that's not a great example, but just using school or knowledge, you learn something in general, and then you learn something more specific. It is what it is, and then you go learn a diction of a job or of a discipline. Thing or it being the most general words for objects. And then you get more specific on what that thing is. What it is, well, what is it? And so as time progresses, and time is a measurement of inefficiency, it is just a metric. So when people say, space-time continuum, again, trying to stay away from physics for this episode, but like I said, I jump from subject to subject readily at all times. But time is not a dimension whatsoever. We'll get specifically to the word dimension in one of the physics videos. But that's really what I'm saying. It's just people make a lot of intuitive extensions that make no sense when it comes to the word time. People hear time and then time travel and time dilution, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, it's just a way to measure something, a rate of exchange of information. But as time goes on, we get more specific on the universal scale, the whole system of everything that's going on, and then any subgroup of the universal scale. And so that's what's going on there. But again, don't imagine this as a triangle. Imagine this as a buried pyramid. It's buried under the sand, and you have to build the pyramid bigger, you have to dig down and not up. Whereas people see a pyramid and say the peak, that is the top, which spatially this is the top, but we're just to give you some picture in your mind to put, that's just any given fact. But again, now imagine this is a pyramid, and again, a pyramid because we can connect this to the geometric argument way back literally in my first or second lecture, maybe dark energy, or nothing says bad vibes like dark energy, or my very first introductory lecture. But we can connect this logic, representation of logic, to the fundamental geometry of 3 being the first closed shape. 3 vertices, 3 points, and 3 sides, 3 lines. And so now imagine that's embedded in 3 dimensions, right? Now imagine that triangle is the face of a pyramid. And so that is just a given fact. But now we connect that to the universal statement already known and accepted in physics, that there is no center to the universe. Now imagine there is no center. This is just an arbitrary fact. An arbitrary thing. Again, a pen on my dinette set is just arbitrary. But now imagine that's a pyramid, and it's in the same way you can take a triangle and you can bisect a square and you get 2 triangles. Now, doing the opposite of that is you take 2 bisected triangles and put them together and form a square. Now imagine taking these sections of pyramids and putting them together and forming 3-dimensional end polygons. I'm sure there's a formula out there already. If you want to personally derive it, go for it. But the point is, it's there. And the relevant point is this fact is not, this is just a picture, it's a diagram. There's nothing unique saying this is like the top. This is just an arbitrary point, and then there's points everywhere. So now imagine this builds out down. This becomes three conclusions, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7, and then because now how many people are there? 8 billion? How long have we been stumbling around this planet? I don't know. In current human form, 400,000 years probably-ish, something like that. That number always changes. But then you have, right, these 2 conclusions that we had with our pen example are derivatives of our given empirical fact. Something exists, now why? We're trying to answer a question. We're answering a why question. We're proving something. We're providing the rationale as to why that thing is there. But now we have our big mental image of this big embedded, again, just nodes, just vertices, if you want to think of them like that, of different facts, things exist in the world, and people drawing conclusions and making behaviors and decisions based on those facts. And so I just have C1 and C2, or any amount of conclusions, are different conclusions derived from the same initial conditions or the same source. All conclusions must be validated by reality, that is, data or evidence. It doesn't matter what your rationale is or how obscure or how unlikely it seems, if the evidence backs it up, it is true. And conversely, if the evidence doesn't back it up, no matter how widely accepted some paradigm is, it is false. So specificity increases as you descend the pyramid, generality decreases. And so again, everybody says it is what it is. Everybody says, good vibes only, bro. But that's the most general thing you can say. And so the more knowledgeable you are, the more intuitive you become about teaching on something, the more specific you've learned it, and the more general you can explain it to somebody else. So really what you're doing is you're taking that person, the more knowledgeable person, the more aware person, is taking the other person who's learning and drawing them down, helping them build their pyramid under the sand, and supporting, the sand's going to have some weight pushing down, so you have to build up your different pillars to support it with, I'm just using, again, another analogy. But you're pulling them down into a more specific diction of ontology and showing them a new conclusion, and then they learn something. And now think of it again, not 2 vertices, 3, 4, 5, 100, 1,000, 10,000, billions. Because now don't just think about 8.1 billion people alive today. How many people have lived before us, collectively? How many different decisions did they make? All of those comes into play. All of it comes into play when it comes to expressing ourselves as human beings. Luckily, we're just monkeys on a rock, so we don't say that many different things. But that is how we make decisions. And so, or that's how logic works. But now, speciality, our desire to differentiate for sexual antagonism, to reproduce, to proliferate and propagate our gene line, we want to be different than other people. We want to stand out. So how does speciality, which again is an axiom that I already proved, values emotion, or speciality values emotion more than logic? How does this affect behavior patterns? Meaning, who out there has stayed in a bad relationship they shouldn't have? That is your emotions overriding your logical decision making, and you know it. How many people have made that decision when your friend started doing something stupid and you knew for a definitive fact that it was wrong and it was bad, but you want to, you're a young teen trying to fit in or whatever, but you're consciously aware that you know this is wrong and you shouldn't do this or whatever. That's your emotions overriding your logical decision making. But the knowledge, you already did the deduction that this doesn't make any sense, and I'm being a stupid 18-year-old or whatever, and then you made the decision otherwise. So emotion overrides logic a lot, and that's getting to what I'm saying is the species maturity level is about 8%, meaning a totally functioning society, species, you're always going to have accidents, vehicle crashes, industrial accidents. Accidents will happen, but you can limit the stupid crime. Will go down substantially. But I think like the maximum kind of behavioral plateau is right around, 85%. Meaning for a mature species that has developed for a long time, figured out all technology, blah, blah, blah. If you have 100 people out of their species, 85 of them will be what would be objectively considered normal, and 15 would probably still be considered shitheads. So it's not like everything just fixes itself all at once. But that is what I wanted to cover for there. But so getting to the point, when I said in the last episode, people don't know what ontological shock is. And so again, vocabulary, what Brad knows, that is my vocabulary. What the world knows about what I'm talking about, that is ontology. The proper way to talk about any given system based off of the sequencing of sounds, as we did last episode or discussed last episode, that is fundamental ontology. And so what ontological shock is, with our same pyramid in mind, when we get down to those 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 10,000th derivatives, again, simply meaning different conclusions based off different facts, based off other different facts, we're all trying to consolidate the truth based off a lot of different cultural backgrounds, familial backgrounds, value systems, structures, but the reality is we're all humans. So we're just expressing the same experiences through different lenses, through different cultures, times, same exact thing, but we're all experiencing the same thing. And so ontological shock happens when somebody, let's say, again, I don't know, I don't care who I offend, let's just say you're a diehard Christian, because that's the kind of the community I come from. Again, like I said it a bunch of times, I'm not really from a religious community. It's Catholic, Christian, but nobody really is like super religious that I'm around. But the point being is, if you have somebody in a discussion that's diehard Catholic or whatever their needle or hair on the camel's back or whatever, somebody's going to break the camel's back, but something happens, you demonstrate a reasoning that they simply cannot deny, it forces physical realization on them, and then it absolutely shatters or changes their worldview. And so, and if they can't accept that change on the historical, on the traditional, on the this affects my day-to-day life, they won't accept the reason or the fact, even though it's objectively true. And so that is shown or demonstrated in our species vocabulary is, right, or phrasing, it's a hard pill to swallow, right? When you shove a hard pill that's to swallow down someone's throat, that forces ontological shock. So people will literally just say ontological shock and then like think we're talking about aliens, or talking about UFOs, UAPs, or whatever. In reality, ontological shock literally means using fundamental logic in a way where other people cannot deny the conclusion, but at the same exact time cannot accept the historical implication of what that conclusion means. And that is I could not have said that better in terms of why human beings cannot function. Why are there wars? Why is there theft? Why is there this? Why is there that? It's because we are just simply not mature. And then getting kind of the last thing is, right, so now we've been talking about facts a lot. So what is the total set of facts you have, right? You can have the personal reference frame, me, Brad, this person right here talking about what I know. I can speak about what the species knows to some extent, which I will call the general you, right? Like when you're in a conversation and saying, if you're talking about basketball players and you say you're talking about the collective general of basketball players. So let's say the collective general of you is everybody else. You have one person, one individual, doesn't matter who, and then everybody else is you. And so you have something known. You can say like, Brad, me, I know this. I know I am making a YouTube video about logic. I know that. Then you have unknowns. What am I going to do exactly tomorrow? I don't know. So there's knowns, there's unknowns. And then you have known knowns, right? I know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I've made plans with Johnny. We are going to go put mulch down on a flower bed. So I know I'm going to go to the garden tomorrow, and Johnny knows I'm going to the garden tomorrow. So the empirical fact that I'm going to the garden, I know, and Johnny knows. And I know that Johnny knows. I know that you know. So you have knowns, unknowns, known knowns, and known unknowns. And so me and Johnny are going to the park. The empirical fact is we're going to go to the park. But are we going to see a squirrel? Are we going to see a cardinal? Are we going to see a blue jay? Are we going to see a woodpecker? Are we going to see people playing basketball or tennis? That's an unknown. We know we're going to the park, but what's there is unknown. We don't know what the future holds. And then you have unknown unknowns, which really only exist universally, right? You can't even begin to discuss something you don't know. And if you don't know what you don't know, then you can't know it. So those are kind of, you can't do anything with those. That's like, again, defining the observable universe, right? What's past that? Or you can't even ask what that is. What is I have made logical progress in defining the universal shape as a function of time, scaling it to desktop level models. So I do have success with that, which is kind of, it solves the 3-body problem into n however many bodies you want with some physical constraints. Again, the physics will be coming next episode. This episode's already going long again. I just keep pulling more stuff in. But so for the unknown unknowns, those are just kind of the universals. Those only really kind of exist in fundamental ontology, and you wouldn't even know how to express them at all. Like me, I just said I know, and not, so you can't. But then another extremely poignant, fundamental, logical, ontological fact to me was that unknown knowns do not exist, right? I know, I don't know. I know you know. You know that I know. I know that you know that I know. And then so after 2 iterations of that, you're really saying something that's not unique. We've addressed that through the empirical value function, right? Like if I say I am going to the store, I'm going to the store. I am not going to the store. I'm not going to the store. I'm not going to the store. Well, therefore, I'm going to the store. If you take any sort of negation of any action or of any word and negate it any even amount of times, it's going to come out to be a positive or a command or something you're going to do. In the same way you take any 2 negative numbers and multiply them together, you get a positive number. Same exact thing, but in the entirety of logic. And so the unknown knowns do not exist, right? I know, I don't know. I know you know that I know. I know that you know that I know. And then unknown unknowns, I don't know, I know you don't know, but you don't know either about the general fact. Are we going to the park? What are we going to see? I don't know. Johnny doesn't know. That's an unknown. That's an unknown. And so unknown unknowns are kind of flaky. The first three are really easy, but then again, known unknowns do not exist. You can't unknow. It does not make any sense. So unknown unknowns do not exist, and it is a fundamental logical paradox. And so, gone over the empirical value function, speciality again, specificity, and then that might be it, is it? But and I'll leave it with this, because right, if you're doing fundamental science, we're talking about fundamental ontology, you have to present a question. Anybody in research, I know I'm repeating myself on a lot of these things, but again, I'm reducing all of these things. I'm deriving and building my underground pyramid way bigger, reaching to way more specificity, so I understand things at a more general level, so I can describe it to different levels. I can go to different people and show them different reasonings that draw them to different facts that they empirically know that is true. And so, and it's only if you're open, like I said, it's the ontological shock comes from the implications of what a given fact has on an overall worldview. But the last thing I wanted to finish off with is this actually, believe it or not, gives us a direct kind of, this isn't an explanation or a proof by any means, but it gives us a really good logical foundation to, right, we need a fundamental question. Where do bad words come from, right? Ass, tit, shit, fuck, suka, bliat, puta. Like, who decides what bad words are? And so, let's have a couple of things to end with. All right, again, we just discussed how environmental reward reinforces behavior, positive and negative. Again, mates, financial opportunity, shelter, resources, identity to determine what is good and what is bad. What is normal is what everybody around you is doing. Doesn't mean it's good or bad. And so you have to just say what is good or bad, meaning fundamentally, physically, the world facts don't care about your feelings, physical systems don't care, the big industrial steamroller that rolls you over doesn't hate you, it was running and you were in the way and it just did physics. But, where was I at? Oh, but good and bad are relative. And so in any objective sense, good is efficient. Whatever the goal is, it gets it done as efficiently as possible. So that would what good would be, and bad would be inefficient. And so inefficiency causes tension, whether that's in a conversation, a disagreement, whether that's in a pipeline for building a product, an assembly line, any sort of managerial hierarchy, any sort of tension, disconnect, communication disconnect, it is inefficient, it is bad. And so, but any operative word, and I'll put that in quotations, is a sentence. In a sentence is a tension point, meaning you read an entire novel and it's that one sentence that really sticks out to you. That's the logical reason that taught you something more about your pyramid tree of your known knowns, of the things that you know. Or I guess of the things of your knowns. But an operative word carries value and will be stressed instinctually in dialogue and in writing, whether it's air quotes, whether it's your tone going up and down, whether it's you screaming, whispering, all those things obviously transmit different information. But in writing, every single person, if you read any book, all of the fundamental logic, all of the fundamental sequences of logic from ontology people will instinctually italicize them. Any book. Any language, they will instinctually italicize them. Go look at it. I've already referenced this. Again, a lot of this stuff is redundant, but nobody's really watched it, and I'm adding stuff to the proof the whole time. I wouldn't say it's redundant, but spoken, tone emphasizes tension. Written, the text will use different accent marks. Because operative words carry the meaning of the interaction, using them incorrectly would be inefficient. If you don't say the right thing to somebody, whether it's work, relationship, it causes tension and it causes a miscommunication. So bad words are inefficient, good words are specific because they're more efficient. Specificity is more efficient when giving directions. And then the more urgent a situation, the more direct the operative words will be that you use will be, right? Just using the example of the last job I had, I was a waiter. When I'm going into the kitchen and I have a tray in my hand and I scream corner, Why did I just scream the word corner? Well, because everybody else, I mean, the context is defined, everybody else is walking around the kitchen with me. And so we're all co-workers. We're not going to be like, hey, little Johnny, excuse me, I'm going to pass by you on the left. It's more efficient just to be like corner, because everybody else knows you're going to be carrying a tray going around a corner so you don't crash and spill a bunch of plates. And so the more urgent a situation is, the more specific you will use of words. Just like saying Mayday, Mayday, save our soul, or save SOS if you're stuck on an island. You know, any sort of these just abbreviations where anybody that also does the activity or discipline would understand immediately. And so, but what I was saying is this lays the logical groundwork for definitively answering what creates a bad word. Like, it's kind of the answer, but we have to boil it down to make it more interesting. And by we, I mean me, because you guys don't do anything. So I'm going to cut it there, but that is the structure of logic. You build a logical pyramid, and it builds down, you build it out. You learn more specifics, you can talk more generally, and it's symbiotic, it's synergetic. The more specific you learn something, the more intuitive something. Any expert that learns something, they practice, and then when it's time to play, it's just all intuition. It's go time. And so I've been on go time in terms of logic since I've been forming sentences. So thank you for watching. Next episode, we'll try to kind of extend the same diagram and just discuss more progress in fundamental physics. So again, remember, vibration and rhythm are the fundamental physical principles. There's no point to try to unify them. That is a misguided motivation. The universe is expanding, so we just have to describe more things. We have to build out our logical. We have to use logic to build our set of facts. That is what we have to do. So thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.